Welcome back to Start Here with UDL. We're going to take a look at a University of Kansas Center for Research on Learning SIM strategy today. This is a great source, University of Kansas SIM, a great source for learner agency, learner-owned strategies. This is a home base if what you want to do is build students' ability to be sense makers, to own their own learning, and to make cognitive connections. So today we're going to take a look at claims. This is the teaching cross-curricular argumentation routine. This is a little bit more involved than anything else that we've posted a video about. It's getting into claim evidence reasoning, and it is magic if what you are trying to do is take 7th graders, 9th graders, 11th graders, I would even say students in post-secondary, through a reasoned set of steps in order to analyze a claim, evidence, reasoning, address a counter argument, make a judgment, and then be able to clearly communicate with citations as to why they think this. And then two awesome things that exist in this particular routine is, one is the materials come with a set of graphic organizers. There's 2 different ones with different levels of scaffolds that allow students to simply fill in the boxes as they go, so heavily scaffolded. And then you can fade the supports over time, so students will be able to use the mnemonic later of the first thing I need to do is clarify the claim, then I list the evidence. So for those of you who love tree, where you say your topic or your thesis, you give your reasons, 3 or more, you wrap it up right, you might put a counter argument in there. Claims and tree go so well together. Claims allows that deep dive that sometimes leads to cognitive overload in students, and they're just waiting on you. My teacher's going to tell me the next step. I'm waiting on my teacher. I'm lost in the sauce. When students have access to claims, they can then use claims and tree and combine it with things like fanboys and a woo bass and to pry. And they're getting into deep analysis, higher order thinking, all of the top of Bloom's taxonomy, all of the things in Hattie's visible learning. And the fascinating part is you've been able to help them stock their learning strategy toolkit. They own these strategies themselves. So I'm going to jump for a minute so that you can see if you have taught a student claims and they can clarify the claim and they've listed the evidence. What's going to happen then is they have all the raw material they need to use tree to create a pre-write, to write a written document or create a multimodal, it doesn't matter, any kind of product that provides the evidence, the reasoning, any counter argument or supporting argument, evaluate the quality of the evidence, the reasoning, and the other arguments, and then justify accepting or rejecting a claim. This is heavy duty, high order thinking. And when you take a look at this anchor chart, you think to yourself, oh, well, that's nice. The most important thing to know here is this is providing a scaffold like Vygotsky wanted us to do with the ZPD. This is putting a student in the rigorous setting. We're not lowering the level of rigor. We're giving them the scaffolds to engage in the level of rigor so that suddenly a rigorous task is in their zone of proximal development because we've given the scaffold to reach that level. So our students will be able to do counterclaims. They'll be able to cite evidence. They'll be able to trace an argument. So I know we all have some students where we're thinking, gosh, they just get overwhelmed and overloaded. They don't have the executive skills. But the reason that we love things like the strategic construction model is these are exactly the kinds of routines that you want to teach a student to then own the gradual release of responsibility so that they can take that, add it to their learning strategy toolkit, connect it to some other strategies, and be successful on some of the most challenging content that's in front of them now. These are the things that will make them successful in future life because we're getting students ready for a future where we don't know what those jobs will be, but they're going to involve critical thinking skills. So take a look at DSRC for our developing skilled readers. DSRC is all about claim evidence reasoning. And one thing to point out is if you do teach a student claims, they'll be able to use it in a discussion as well as in writing because it's just putting their thoughts together. Much like tree, it is a way to organize your thoughts in order to connect your evidence and your reasoning to a claim. So we're able to teach students to take pieces of evidence from different texts. They're supporting a claim in this particular case, and some inferences. They're going to be able to quote and paraphrase from those texts and trace where the evidence was. So that's some challenging stuff. It will take a little while. This is a great one to talk about in vertical alignment meetings, because if you roll claims in 7th or 8th grade, then by 11th or 12th grade, those students will be using this fluently. And the other things to lift up from a UDL lens, if we want to increase learner agency, a student can choose to use claims argumentation strategy for a lot of things. Not only are they tracing an argument in specific claims in a text and determining whether or not all of the evidence is relevant, or whether there's something that is irrelevant, but they're also able to get into deep conversations about author's purpose. Why is this author putting this out here? Is this persuasive? Are they trying to convince me? Is this a straw man argument? What's happening here? This is getting deeply into things like author's perspective and beliefs, assumptions, biases. These are difficult things to teach, and it's nice to be able to have a support for the cognitive load that comes sometimes from the level of difficulty of the text. And also when we get into integration of concepts, this helps students determine how does this particular section, how do these particular pieces of evidence contribute to the development meaning of ideas in this text and maybe across a text set. And it does let them get into points of view and how different opinions and reasoning need to be compared and contrasted. So I'm going to return for a moment. If you take a look at claims, clarify the claim, list the evidence, analyze the reasoning, identify other arguments, counter arguments, supporting arguments, make your judgment as to why not you're going to accept or reject the claim, and then make a statement for it. This is a fantastic routine to lower the cognitive load for students who need to learn how to do this, can hang in there with scaffolds, but need something where over time they'll be able to say, I'm getting a lot better at clarifying the claim and listing the evidence. I'm having trouble with analyzing the reasoning. I'm now doing well with analyzing the reasoning. I'm having trouble identifying other arguments. Sometimes breaking down the task, that cognitive task analysis piece, is hard for us. One thing that's nice about this sim routine is it does it for us. So highly recommend this for your learner-owned strategy toolkit. Seriously consider bringing this to a vertical articulation meeting to talk about having students be able to engage in this and get support in this multiple years.